All right, great. Welcome everyone to PCDO's November membership meeting. I want to take a moment to thank all of you, first of all, for all your activism this election cycle. As you could see, this election cycle was really, really close. And if you participated and if you helped in any way, if you voted, then you made the difference. So thank you so much. And a huge shout out to our VP of Elections, Jean DeVoe, for all of her leadership in ensuring that Democrats, won this election and LD16, all of our LD16 candidates and Mercer County candidates, all of PCDO's endorsees won. So congratulations to all the candidates and newly elected officials and re-elected officials, and congratulations to all of you as well. And thank you for all your activism. Together we were able to make a difference. All right, on to tonight's program. So first of all, I want to take a moment to thank Jean Durbin because she, as a former president, has been such a source of knowledge and support during my transition and has helped out in so many ways. And then she stepped up and offered to organize this month's program. And of course, I said yes. And I'm truly grateful to her for all of her mentorship and her guidance and all of her support and help, and particularly for organizing this program this month. So thank you, Jean. So with that, I'm just going to do quick introductions, and we're going to kick off our community conversation with Chief Morgan. The conversation is going to be moderated by Jean Durbin, who needs no introduction. She is a former president of PCDO, is a school board member, is a former Princeton Civil Rights Commissioner, and holds so many titles that I couldn't do her justice in the next hour. So thank you, Jean, for agreeing to moderate this important conversation for our community. And then, of course, we have our township administrator, Bernie. Bernie, help me pronounce your last name, please.
It's Hvozdovic.
Hvozdovic. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So welcome to this conversation. We know you're fairly new to Princeton as well, but we're excited to have you here and excited that you're joining us for this important conversation tonight. And then finally, and most importantly, Chief Christopher Morgan, who began his career in law enforcement in 1998 after graduating from the Trenton Police Academy. He's a graduate of the College of New Jersey with a Bachelor of Science degree and holds a master's degree from Seton Hall University. Additionally, he has attended the Federal Bureau of Investigation Law Enforcement Development Seminar and is a graduate of Session 239 of the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Chief Morgan was appointed as the Chief of Police for the Princeton Police Department in October of 2020. We're excited to welcome you here, Chief Morgan. And I should also mention that I'm an alum of the FBI Citizens Academy. So that was a really interesting experience. So welcome. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Jean. Jean, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to start, if I could, with Chief Morgan. First question, tell us a little bit about yourself and if you have a vision for our town police, what you see some of the greatest needs of our community are and what you see as the biggest challenges.
Sure. So just to kind of touch on a little bit of the introduction. First, thank you everyone for having me here tonight. I think these conversations are fantastic and very important for the police department in particular to have with its community members. So again, thank you. Yeah, so I've been in law enforcement for 24 years now, 23 of which in Princeton, and I've been very fortunate and blessed in my career to have a lot of success and then ultimately reach the rank of Chief of Police at the end of last October. It's been a very interesting career with consolidation, right? You start off in one career and then you kind of have the opportunity with consolidation to really redevelop what Princeton policing in Princeton meant. And that's really where the vision of the police department, the current police department, first developed. It was with consolidation. I recall many of meetings before and mainly after of trying to come up with an identity for the new police department. You know, again, it was such a unique opportunity to kind of put your career on pause and say, okay, do we want to make any changes, and how do we want to be a better part of the community? So we did that, and it came down to, we wanted to be a service-oriented police department, and that's been our focus and our commitment since 2013, is to be more of considered like the guardians of the community, and also very much being a part of the community as well. So our vision within the department and everything we do always focuses on that service-oriented aspect. And it really starts for us when we talk about and we go into a recruitment phase. We make it very clear to anyone that's interested in joining the Princeton Police Department of who we are, how what we believe is a proper way of policing, and what's expected in Princeton. And again, that's to be really a police department that provides just high quality police service to its community, and really working together with the community to make Princeton better for everyone.
Thanks. I was hoping we could talk several questions on this topic, the legalization of cannabis, and what you think the biggest challenges are for the police. How might you balance legalization and raising awareness of things like driving while high, for example?
Sure. So the legalization, you know, it was very interesting because we've gone through my entire career where it was illegal. So it was really a shift for law enforcement for, I don't want to say all of a sudden, but it, you know, for it just to become legalized in the end. The biggest concern for us, quite frankly, was people driving under the influence. We were concerned that we were going to see an uptick, and quite frankly, we haven't. So we're very thankful for that. But that was our biggest concern. The biggest challenge, I would say, in the police department with that, in determining if someone is driving under the influence with marijuana, there's certain criteria that comes into play, and it's called a drug recognition expert. So there's been a lot of talk within the state of increasing the amount of DREs within each police department. We have 3, and then prior to the pandemic, there was a big push through the state to start increasing this training because it's actually very, very extensive. But COVID kind of put that on the back burner. Obviously, I guess it did with a lot of things. But you know, that's probably our biggest challenge right now, is to make sure that we have a full complement of DREs. But again, our concern was the DUIs. But again, thankfully, we haven't seen that increase. I think what it comes down to is education and communication, right? So as long as we can communicate the idea and educate folks that, yeah, that it is legal. However, you're not able to, not permitted to, obviously drive under the influence. And again, there's the cannabis task force. I know there's an education component there as well. So I think we have someone on the committee. So I think, again, these partnerships within the community and the police department go a long way. And that's another way that we can help serve the community.
Thanks, Chief. Can you share a little bit about how possession of marijuana is currently handled for people over and under 21, and how that might, change?
Yeah, there were a lot of changes to it. It first came out, and then it got changed again, especially with juveniles. Quite frankly, we're not coming across it as much as we really thought we would. It's legalized, but it's not prevalent. It's quite honestly, we thought we would see a lot more of it. We thought maybe potentially our officers may have been challenged with it, but we have not seen really marijuana in town. Now and then, I know the officers, they may smell it here and there, but we're not coming across people at all in possession of it that we need to do anything with.
Great. Before I turn to Bernie, wanted to ask a little bit about your work with the county and the state. What is that relationship like with our police department? What can be improved? What's working well?
Sure. So we have a fantastic relationship with the county and the state. On the county level with the prosecutor's office, we meet with them on a regular basis. I personally meet with the prosecutor and all the chiefs of police once a month. Our detectives are in constant contact with their detectives and their assistant prosecutors to assist in investigations. So the relationship is fantastic, and the support is really throughout the county, from the prosecutor's office to the sheriff's department to even other municipality police departments as well. And then on the state level, the same idea. There's a lot of information that comes from the attorney general that makes its way through the county prosecutor's office to us, but then even through the state police that kind of takes the lead in a lot of aspects with policing in New Jersey. The regional operation information center. So anytime that we have any large scale events like the half marathon that we just had, we're always in contact with them just to make sure, if there's any threats or anything that may pop up that we need to be aware of. They handle a lot of that for us. And then even there's a new, what's called a real-time crime center within Mercer County that's based out of Trenton. So that's a tremendous asset as well within investigation. So no, we're very pleased with our relationships, and it's really a two-way relationship as well.
Great. What's the real-time crime center?
It's run through the state, and anytime anybody in Mercer County has an investigation taking place, you can reach out to them, and they kind of do a lot of the back end investigation to help out. And it's really a hub of information sharing within the county.
Nice. Are you able to share any information about the recent spate of car thefts in town and the investigation linked with the fatalities on Route 27?
Yeah, so we have had quite a few car thefts since August. I believe we're at 10 or 11, but it's not just within Princeton. It's not even just within the state. It's really within the tri-state area and really the East Coast. And the reason being is there's such a tremendous value on the street now for cars. So what's happening is you're having kids recruiting other kids to come down to different towns where they know where it's somewhat vulnerable, and they're easily just stealing cars, and then they're either stealing cars to then go into other towns and continue to steal cars, or they then sell them, and they're making a lot of money. In Princeton, and then even in South Brunswick, I think South Brunswick had 13 stolen cars in one day. And what we're seeing is in our meetings and collaborating on this with the different issues, in particular with the car thefts, the vast majority of the car thefts, the cars are unlocked and the keys are in the car. So it's not like they're breaking into the car and hot wiring the car. They literally can almost tell with some of the cars if they're unlocked, unsecured, and the keys are in them just driving by. And we're talking about a group that they're quite brazen in what they do. They were in Princeton in the middle of the day, so it's not even like they're hiding throughout the night. So we've went out and put a campaign together just to let everyone know, as a reminder, to make sure that you're locking your car, that you're keeping your keys inside. And our hope is that, it's a crime of opportunity. And if we can take the opportunity away in Princeton, then the crime itself will shift out of Princeton.
If you're able to comment, do you have any leads on who they are and the kids?
It's from what we've seen and what we're hearing, it's a lot of kids, but it's not just I think some people were saying, there's gangs in town. It's not that. There is just such a high amount of value for these cars. It's not just one certain group. It's a much larger scale. A lot of these cars are ending up out of state into these different networks where they're then being shipped out of the country. So it's not a local issue. It's a bigger issue. But our issue to make it local is the 13 stolen cars or 10 stolen cars that we've had since August. And again, we've done the Nixle alerts. Hopefully everyone subscribes to the Nixles. So we put out information that went out, I believe, 5 o'clock every night for the past week or so. Again, just reminding people to please lock your cars. Because again, if we can take the opportunity away, then we can remove the crime as well.
Thanks. I was going to ask if Bernie maybe could put how to get the Nixle alerts in the chat in case people, aren't subscribed yet.
I think it's just nixle.com, right? And you go on and then you put in whatever zip codes you want to get Nixles from, and you'll get Nixles from that area and maybe sometimes right around there. But it's pretty easy to sign up, and you can have text alerts right to your phone, so you can get that information.
Yeah, and it's I believe even if you go on the town website, there's a link right on there as well. And we use it as our basically a mass notification system. So anytime we want to get information out to the community as quickly as possible, we'll use the Nixle alerts. So it's important.
Yeah, and Nixle is Nixle.
Thank you.
And I can even I could put something on our social media pages tomorrow as well.
Perfect.
Yep.
Great. So we had a question about police maybe not always being the first responders to incidents in town. And we're wondering if, in your opinion, are there examples where it makes sense for other professionals to respond, and what those instances might be? And what about police community partnerships responding to calls?
Yeah, so it's an interesting concept, and actually these conversations in Princeton started a number of years ago with the same idea of trying to develop it, and it never fully came out. A lot of those conversations, when we talked about possibly going that route, it would deal with people that were in crises. So the way now, if someone's in crises and we need to get them help, we're typically the first ones there, the ambulance squad, and then we can get them some help from there. On the police side, if I'm being honest, if there's something different that can be done to help the community, we fully support it. My only concern is with this, who would be responding in our place, their safety, because a lot of times people in crises obviously aren't thinking, very clearly. And even backing it up a little bit more, who determines when to divert that call from the police? So is it the actual caller? Is it communications? So there's a lot of kinks obviously to it. We're more than willing to have the conversations. For me, I would say soon after I was promoted to chief, I realized that we didn't have a lot of available resources to us when dealing with people, not just in crises, but people in need in general. And we were finding that we were coming across this past winter, the same people over and over, where we were referring them to a resource, we were trying to get them help, and then weeks, sometimes even days, we were dealing with them again. A lot of it had to deal with homeless. We had a few homeless people staying in the vestibule of the police department for a few days, and we would try to get them help and outreach. But again, they would come back. So it wasn't a long-term solution. So I went out and I partnered with the Volunteers of America. What a fantastic organization. Those people, God bless them for everything that they do. So whenever we come across someone that's in need, not just in crises, maybe someone that's homeless, dependency issues, or maybe they're just having a hard time paying their electric bill or whatever it may be, we make a referral to the Volunteers of America. It goes directly to them. They have an outreach center right in the Lawrence Police Station. So that's kind of like their Mercer County hub. And we're the only two agencies in Mercer County that utilize them right now. They'll make contact or try to make contact within 24 hours based on the information that we provide them of what the issue may be and their last known location. And it's been a success. We've noticed that we're not seeing some of the same faces over and over. So they're clearly getting some better help from the Volunteers of America, because we never really had anybody, once we would make the referral, we never really had anybody follow up. So now with the Volunteers of America, we have somebody that's in crises or someone that's homeless or whatever the issue may be, we can get them that maybe some of that initial help, but then the Volunteers of America come in and then there's a constant follow up with them. So that's been a tremendous success for us.
Nice. Could you speak a little bit about the demographic makeup of our police department?
Sure. So, yeah, I guess there was that article in NJ.com that kind of broke down some of the demographics in New Jersey with policing that just came out end of this week, I believe. I think some of our numbers might have been a little bit different from theirs, but just looking here, we are 70% white, 14% African American, 14% Hispanic, and 2% Asian. And when you look at that report from NJ.com, we were ranked number 50 out of 556 police departments for being the most diverse. So when we go into a recruitment phase, that's one of our biggest goals, is to make our applicant pool as diverse as possible, right? So you can only hire diversity if you're recruiting diversity. And we just really finished a recruitment process that started maybe 2 years ago. And the concern was, with policing right now, how much interest there was going to be. And I can tell you, there are some neighboring and local police departments that in their most recent recruitment process, 30, 40 applicants potentially, we brought in over 500. Typically we see like 600 to 800. So it was a little bit of a dip, but still well into the 500s. And it's even at a time now, if you read about it, state police is even down thousands and thousands in their recruitment efforts. So we've been very fortunate. We'd like to think, like, oh, we do a great job with our recruitment, and that's why we're bringing in so many people in a diverse pool. But we make it a point when we go to the selection phase, we interviewed all 500 applicants. Obviously quick interviews, but we make it a point that if you're going to apply to us, we're going to take the time to listen to you and meet you and give you that opportunity. And one of the questions we would always ask is, why the Princeton Police Department? And repeatedly, it was, it's a professional organization, a community service oriented police department. And that's what people are looking for right now. They want to be attached to a community. We're looking at a couple of applicants right now that are far along into the state police process that, quite frankly, they're going to pass it up because they want to be a part of the Princeton Police Department because of our reputation, how we police, what we believe in. And I think that's why, more so than anything, why we're so successful in having a large applicant pool, a diverse applicant pool, which then helps bring in the diversity into the hiring end of the process.
Nice. How do we compare with female police officers?
7, I believe, 7 female officers, which out of a 53-person police department, if you compare that to any of the other local police departments in Mercer County, it's unmatched. And again, it's, we go into a process where we want to recruit as many people, diversity, but in the end, we're going to select who we think is going to be a great police officer within Princeton and within the Princeton Police Department. And we've been very, very fortunate, I would say, in our last couple of hiring processes.
Nice. I know there is an upcoming conversation with the Princeton Civil Rights Commission, and our chair, Tommy Parker, is on the call here. So we're just hoping for a preview of your thoughts on civilian police review boards, and if they could be helpful, and if so, how?
Yeah. So actually, we did have that conversation. Tommy and some folks came to our public safety committee meeting maybe a month or two ago, would be my best guess. And we had a great conversation, and we talked about the idea of the civilian review board, some of the expectations and everyone's thoughts. And the idea, I think, with civilian review boards is transparency and to really understand the process and to address maybe some issues in policing, and in particular, some specific police departments. With transparency, if you take a look at our website, you'll see we put out a monthly report that's quite extensive with a lot of data. So we consider ourselves to be a bit of an open book. We also quarterly, we put out our IA information if there's any internal affairs investigations that came in. And then to learn about the process, we also went ahead and published our internal affairs policy itself that we refer to. So all the information we've put out to the community to see. And then the last part to address issues within a police department, I'll be honest with you, our internal affairs complaints are incredibly low. A handful a year. And honestly, they're really, most of them are generated after someone is stopped and they're receiving a summons. So we're not seeing complaints where there's use of force complaints. I don't even think we've used force at all this year. But we're not seeing an extensive amount of complaints to come in. But again, if the community is looking to go in a direction where they feel that it's something that's needed, we'll certainly always participate in those conversations.
Thanks. You mentioned we have a 53 officer police force. And we obviously have some new housing units coming to town because of the affordable housing obligation, and that will contribute to growth. How do you anticipate an increase in new neighbors will affect the police department? And, will our current staffing levels need to be adjusted?
Yeah, so I think 53 right now is a perfect size police department. I don't see, obviously right now, we don't need to grow any more than what we are. And I'm sure mayor and council are keeping an eye on the growth of the community. For us on the police side of it, our concern would be, and you just touched on it, that the more people that come into town, the more calls for service would come into the police department. So that's just something we would have to watch to see how much of an uptick there was. The Avalon Bay generated a little bit more for us. But I would say probably the main concern, to be honest, would be traffic. Traffic always seems to be the number one complaint in Princeton. We're seeing issues with distracted driving and accidents as well. So we did a limited campaign to try to address some of the distracted driving issues that we're seeing in Princeton. So if we're going to have an increase in population, you're going to see more traffic in town. You're going to see more congestion possibly on the streets, potentially more accidents, and then hopefully we can reduce some of the distracted driving to help reduce the accident side of it.
Right. I will say, just a big thank you to all of the police officers serving as crossing guards, since we have a great shortage. It's always an adventure trying to get to school in the morning.
Well, I might have to do a shameless plug here at some point for crossing guards, because we're still a little shy, to be honest. And there's times where we don't have anybody available to even take a call for service, because everyone is out on a school crossing. There's been many of times where I'm actually the only one available, and then I'll go out on the road and start having to answer calls or take a crossing. So any help with crossings would certainly be appreciated, because we're really getting to a point on some days where we haven't been able to fill all the crossings. So we're starting to really monitor how many students we're crossing, how many are crossing potentially with their families. So if we do need to reduce the amount of crossings on a certain day because we don't have the staffing, where we would need to start. So it really isn't an issue, and it's been a struggle to really get people to volunteer. So any help in getting the word out that we're still in need of crossing guards.
Sure. And I actually don't understand why, because it pays fairly well. And I'm just trying to figure out if there's some sort of an impediment to it, that if you take a job, do you have to do both shifts? Could you just do one shift?
No, yeah, we're very flexible. We'll take anything right now. So if people want to split a shift, or people can only do a morning, we certainly would work around it, and we would do all the training. You get paid for all the training. But it's just it's been hard to get people interested, and some people that have been interested come in, they do maybe half of the training, and then they decide that they don't want to do it. So it's been a challenge.
Are you still taking fill-ins?
Yeah, absolutely.
I see Fern out there sometimes too.
Fern, do you know anybody?
Thank you, Fern.
It's a hard position to fill. I happen to love it, but to get people to want to do it, it's not easy to do.
No.
I mean, not that the job is hard, it's just that I happen to love it because I'm up close and personal with the students and with parents and all, and that's a joy for me, but I don't know how other people take it.
And the last sell would be we do a nice pizza party at the end of the year for all our crossing guards. So
thank you. We will send something out about that, I hope.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I give you a break and turn to Bernie? So Bernie, welcome. Thanks so much for being with us. And could you describe a little bit about your background and how you're finding your first 6 months as our town administrator?
Sure. So grew up in South Brunswick, just over the border. I live in Kingston. I've been coming to Princeton since the 70s, so I'm well acquainted with the municipality. Went to school at Wake Forest, got my undergraduate degree in economics, got my law degree from Delaware Law School, master's of public administration from the Harvard Kennedy School. I was a certified civil trial attorney. I did that for 20 years before I transitioned into municipal government, where I started in South Brunswick as their township manager, which essentially is the same role here. It's just called the administrator here, a little different form of government there, but essentially it's the same job. I was there for 10 years, and then this job opened up. I never thought I would leave there, having grown up there and been there for many years, but this was an interesting opportunity that I took a run at it and was fortunate enough to get it. So I have been here since May of this year. So a little over 6 months. A lot going on in Princeton, which is one of the things I liked about it. And coming out of the pandemic is a great opportunity on so many fronts. Economic development, the social services, the human services side of it. This time last year, the university didn't have students back. Now the kids are back in school, so you work with the university. So it's been very interesting. You have very active council members here, and you have also very active residents here. My first council meeting here was 5 hours, and you had 122 residents on. I didn't have a 5 hour, I didn't have a 2.5 hour council meeting, I think, in my 10 years. And then I don't think I had 122 people in an audience if you added up every meeting over 10 years. So everyone is very active here, which is great to see. So that's my kind of take on the first 6 months.
Nice. So great recent news about the reorganization and the promotion of Jeffrey Grosser and Deanna Stockton. Can you speak a little bit about that and how you anticipate the restructuring will support your work?
Sure. So 2 great employees obviously were here well before I got here. The restructure was in the works before I got here. When I came on, Bob Brusheye was kind of the intermediary between Mark DeShiel and I, and Bob had been working on the restructuring with the personnel committee here. They both do very good jobs. They both have very different but very important, as you know, Jeff through the pandemic has been absolutely fantastic. I know when I was in South Brunswick, we looked to Jeff and reached out to Jeff here for his expertise. We didn't have our own health officer in South Brunswick. We used the county. So, on Jeff's side, you've got the whole human services, social services aspect, as well as health, which obviously in these times, you've got the pandemic overlaid over what was already a difficult time for some people. And then you've got the pandemic. On Deanna's side, you've got infrastructure and operations. We've got some aging infrastructure here on the sewers. We've got the projects. You've got the Witherspoon project coming up. We've got the Nassau Street project. So there's a lot being done there as well. So those 2 are going to see kind of those sides of the house as deputy administrators. And then I'm going to continue with police, the clerk's office, finance, planning, zoning, that type of thing. So they're going to take some stuff off my plate to allow me to do a deeper dive on the stuff I need to work at. And, they can then come to me if they have problems. So I think it'll be great for the organization. It'll be great for the municipality to have this structure in place. Over time, there had been different assistants in some aspects or another, but I think this really kind of formulates what we need to be doing moving forward. And I think it's going to be a good thing.
Wonderful. I'm curious if you could describe, what a typical day or a typical week is like for you.
I wish there were a typical day. So as I say, I could have 10 things on a to-do list when I walk in. And as soon as I walk in, maybe my HR manager comes in and there's an employee issue, then a resident calls, and then this happens, and there's a fire, and it could be 4 o'clock and I've got nothing done that I had anticipated doing. So, which is one of the great things though about the job, because you never know what your day holds for you. I mean, my day is fairly structured with meetings, any number of things, but it truly day-to-day changes based on the needs of what's happening in the town that day. So there is no kind of average day.
And how about the master plan? Anything to share there? The process, the
I
vision?
don't. I believe we've hired a consultant to do that, but I've got no information yet on that aspect of it.
Okay. Couple more questions for
Sure.
Chief Morgan, and happy to entertain a couple of questions in the chat if people want to post anything. Can you describe for us, Chief, your philosophy on working with people in town without legal citizenship status? What are the most common issues you face? And do we have enough resources in place for the police to refer people in need?
Yeah, so, this has been a question that's come up since I've started here, about reaching out to that part of the community and trying to offer police services with them. We had an officer, George Narvez, who retired. That was a great loss for the police department because he was a great liaison for us. So we've we've put out, we're not interested in people's citizenship and what their status is. It's truly irrelevant to us. There's AG guidelines that even there's so many restrictions on if we could even ask that, and it would have to be an actual aspect of the investigation in order for us to even go that route, which quite frankly we don't see. So it's sad and disappointing to think that there's people out there that may be hesitant to come to the police department because that's a concern of theirs, and I know it exists. Actually, I just the past week or two, someone reached out to me with a confidential tip, and it was similar in that scenario where they didn't want to come forward, and they kind of did it through some different channels. So that's one thing that, like I said, this has been 24 years since I've heard this topic come up, and we haven't been successful in reaching out and really satisfying that concern. I think we need help from community leaders, like people on this Zoom tonight, to reach out to the community and explain potentially. I know we've worked in the past with human services to say, they don't have to come to the police department. They can come to you, to human services, and we would even meet them there if need be. So we're always trying to explore different avenues to try to reach out. Because again, you can't have people in your community that are either victims of crime, and it could be repeated over and over. So we do need to find a better way to let people know that that's not something that we're interested in. And I think maybe that's we've talked before about maybe how the community can help the police department, and that's probably one aspect right there, is to help try to get that information out.
Do we have dedicated Spanish-speaking resources?
We do. Well, we have a number of Spanish-speaking officers, and we make it a point. So every year we generate new squads. So we have 4 patrol squads, and every year we shuffle everyone around, so everyone has an opportunity throughout their career to work with different supervisors and different officers. And we always make sure that each squad has a female and a Spanish-speaking officer as well. And if for some reason that officers, a lot of them even have 2 at times, but if someone is not available, we also subscribe to Language Line. So we can go to any call, and if there's a language barrier, regardless of what the language would be, sign language, we even have a contract with the Language Line as well. So there's never a time where we would not be able to communicate with someone in the community because of that type of a barrier.
That's great to know. Thanks. I have a question someone sent asking about if it's more expensive to run a community police department, community service-oriented police department compared to a more traditional police department.
Interesting. I guess in a sense, if you look at our structure, we have a dedicated community policing unit. We call it our Safe Neighborhood Bureau. That does a tremendous amount of community outreach, not to the community, to the schools. They're kind of like our first stop when it comes to community policing. We go to them, but then we also require each patrol squad, so each one of the 4 patrol squads quarterly, to engage in a community service type project. Now the budget that comes out of Safe Neighborhood Bureau, I think they're allocated, $1,200. So $1,200 in a municipal budget is pretty low. So no, I wouldn't say that it's more expensive. But you can see it in our structure, and you can see it on the type of calls that we go to. If someone in the community calls, we go. There's, if we were more of a, I don't want to say more of a traditional, but just just focused on law enforcement itself, there's a lot of calls that a police department may not go to. But if someone in town calls, pretty much regardless of what it is, we will send someone out there.
Yes, and thanks for that. really appreciate it. Any other questions? Really? Well, that's because we covered a lot of ground. Thank you so much. Afshin?
So thank you so much, Jean, first of all, for brainstorming this community meeting with our police chief and our township administrator, and for agreeing to moderate it when I asked you. You did a fantastic job. And thank you to Chief Morgan for being here tonight with us, for being willing to have these conversations with our community. We hope this will be the first of many and the start of many community conversations on issues that are important to our community. Thank you also to Bernie for being here. And honestly, Bernie, I just started a new job myself, and I can totally relate. I get nothing done on my list, and I'm dealing with a number of other things. So I was laughing as you were sharing that. So thank you all for being here tonight, and we look forward to many more conversations. And thank you to our membership for joining and being so invested in our community and the concerns of our community. We will push out a message to our membership on crossing guards. Chief Morgan, if you're able to share whatever it is you typically post, I'm happy to push that out to our membership as well.
Yeah, great. I'll make sure it gets done first thing in the morning. We'll put something out.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and wishing you a wonderful week ahead. Good night.
Good night. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.